We have Telstra's annual general meeting coming up week after next, and ahead of those we do some shareholder briefings. And I was doing one of those up in Brisbane last week. And when you sit and talk to the average shareholder, many of you have similar shareholders in listed companies, and many of you have others who face similar issues in terms of customers. The understanding out there that when you look at our networks and you see things like over the last 5 years, a 9-fold increase in the use of mobile broadband, or a 6-fold increase in the use of fixed broadband, where you see compound growth rates of 60, 70% a year, where you see the use of online mobile banking sort of doubling in a 2.5-year time frame. And then you start to extrapolate those things out. Or you sit and you look at the speeds in all our networks and think that almost exactly a decade ago, 6th of October 2006, I'm not sure who in this room, there might be one or two, Craig might have been in the room, I'm not sure, down at the overseas passenger terminal, Telstra turned on its 3G network. And the company was immensely proud of 3.6, the 0.6 mattered, megabits per second, peak download speed. And we were running ads saying world's fastest mobile network. And what are we at today? 600 megabits at sort of peak, where you're seeing 5G, gigabit plus trials out there. And it's literally slightly less than a decade that we were there. So we all face challenges. How do we do things more efficiently? How do we save money to be able to deliver the value that customers need? And equally, how do we then capture that value so that we have the ability to invest for the future? Again, it's interesting looking at share of wallet around the world and in Australia when it comes to telco services. And slightly over the last decade, the share of wallet of customer purchasing power spend has been declining, notwithstanding the fact that customers today are using 4 times the amount of data in their average mobile plan than they were only 18 months ago. So they're spending less and getting a huge amount more. The big opportunity for all of us is how do we add that extra value that is worth paying for? And how do we do that in a way which then lets us invest further? And that's an issue for the whole industry. And part of Wholesale's mission is therefore to be as efficient as we can possibly be to enable our customers to have the ability to make those investments and equally to reap the benefits of that efficiency in terms of how we do things most effectively. And so that leads me to talk about what are we doing in Wholesale. And I walked in and it's fair to say that we had a lot of terrific work happening in terms of how we were delivering service here and now. And we were tending to think very much about you, our direct customers, and apologies if that's scratching. Think very much about you and our direct customers in terms of what we were doing. And one of my challenges to the team was, are we thinking enough about what you do with your customers, about how you reach the end users, be they consumers, be they business, be it enterprise, be it other wholesale customers? Because unless we're really thinking through what we're doing about what is the end output, it could be very easy for us to focus on stuff that is sort of immediately visible, but not necessarily of most value to you. And so in that intervening 5 months, I've been to the Telstra board and a lot of discussions with the management team about how do we think slightly differently about wholesale in terms of where are there groups of end users who are not making the most of everything that our networks have, end users who've clearly made a choice that Telstra Retail is not for them, and how do we do a better job of being what I will describe Telstra's unbranded channel, as opposed to saying we're simply sort of a supplier of industrial inputs and we don't really, we think, but only at one level, about what does that mean as it flows through. And when we look at how we, around the room, use measures like Net Promoter Score, which large parts of this industry use, how do we do a better job of lifting the overall NPS of our industry? And we have some amazing organisations in different market segments, different organisations clearly lead. But when we come back to that share of wallet question, the way we will get that share of wallet up as an industry is when the whole industry is performing better. And Telstra Wholesale, given the breadth and depth of our networks, has a fundamental role to play in that. And that leads to then a different way of thinking about how do we do product development, and very much to what Terry said, how do we do a lot more co-collaboration? How do we do a lot more thinking about it from the end user's point of view and what you need, rather than just viewing ourselves as the supplier of wholesale inputs up against others supplying similar inputs into you. But again, each of you has a slightly different business model, different needs, and we will be doing different things for different people, respecting and understanding that some need and want more, some need and want only some specific things, and we need to balance those two things effectively. Many of you would have heard that when we announced our results a bit over a month ago, we announced an incremental program to spend an additional $3 billion on network resilience and reliability, additional network features, and digitising so much of what we do. And clearly digitising in this context includes things like the Links Online system. That $3 billion, by the way, isn't the total amount of money. If you put it in its context, Telstra historically has spent $3.5 to $4 billion a year of capital expenditure, and that $3 billion is on top of that. So in very round numbers, if you think over the next 3 years, it's close enough to getting towards $15 billion. And you all know the numbers on NBN and how much is being spent on the sort of oohs and ahs that come out of the media every time those numbers get mentioned. And this is just the next 3 years, and it's just Telstra, and it's around our networks, not trying to build something new. But it is about saying we need a fundamental change in how we deliver for you and how we deliver for every end user, every customer, no matter who and where they are. And wholesale is absolutely core, by the way, as you would expect, both on the network side where we have one network and be it wholesale, retail, enterprise, not-for-profit, everybody is using the same thing. And equally on digitisation, what does that mean? That means enabling us to be so much more efficient in serving you to let you serve each of your customers in a much more effective way.